Good morning. Chris Lee and Gavin Schoenwald of Southeastern 14 here to talk some SEC football as we do on Mondays. Gavin, a lot to unpack this weekend. We had a super impressive performance by Georgia on the road. We had Missouri pulling one out of the fire late. We had quarterback injuries. We had Sam Pittman getting retained. We got all kinds of stuff done. Oh, and then there was Auburn. But anyway, all kinds of stuff to unpack this morning.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Excited to get into it. Obviously, Georgia looked like an absolute wagon. Going to be hard to stop them, I think. But what a matchup that's going to be in Atlanta. Super disappointing in Auburn, obviously. And then you turn around and look at what Missouri was able to do, and they continue their magical season, right? And how awesome was that on 4th and 17? You don't cover the one guy that you think the ball is going to, and sure enough, it hit him right in the chest. So lot to talk about today. Really excited, obviously. Monday is a fun day because we're fresh off the weekend. Emotions are high. Opinions are high. So, yeah, let's get into it, Chris.
Yeah, doing this makeshift style.
Hey, come on. It's Thanksgiving week, baby. What do you
I'm
expect?
in Loveland, Colorado, about 20 minutes from where you played a football game a year ago.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Doing the in-laws thing for Thanksgiving. Got may or may not have shouting kids in the background at certain points. You never know.
It's authentically
don't have all my equipment with me, but we are making this work the best we can.
Let's do it, man.
All right. A reminder, our show presented by BetOnline. The holiday season is off and rolling with NFL in full stride, the NBA and NHL hitting season form. BetOnline is your number one destination for all your sports wagering information with up-to-the-minute sports wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. BetOnline is the top spot for everything pro and amateur sports, not just the Big Four. BetOnline has info available at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access at any time. For almost any sport that's played, from MMA to international soccer, head to BetOnline today. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that is BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Gavin, where would you like to start? Because we had several things to discuss this weekend. Some good for the league, some bad for the league. But What was the highlight or the thing that most stood out to you? Could be a low light too.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start with Georgia, and then we can transition to Missouri, Florida, because I think those are the two probably highlighted games of the weekend. Let's start with Georgia, Tennessee, man. What a start for the Volunteers, right? They break a new decibel record off that first play touchdown run. And sure enough, I'm sure every Volunteer fan thought, oh, this is gearing up to be another magical night, another magical day here at Neyland Stadium. And sure enough, it was just the opposite of that. Man, Georgia just brought the hammer. And I can't say enough about Carson Beck and how much he's grown throughout the season. I mean, the dude was surgical, absolutely picking apart the Tennessee defense. I've said this before on this show, but looking back at that Auburn game on the road at Auburn where they fell behind early, I think he grew a lot in that game. Didn't play well at the start, and then really leaned on Bowers there at the end to pull it out. And then obviously they go on and play Florida, which is a neutral site game, but away from Athens. Now they go to a really hostile environment in Neyland Stadium, and man, he didn't flinch. And look, they flashed everywhere. Bowers obviously was great. My man Bell, holy smokes, what a game from him! Passing touchdown, receiving touchdown. Yeah. Just was all over the place. I saw something as well. He's a 2-star recruit, and Todd Monken saw him work out on campus and offered him on the spot. That's what Georgia right now. The reason they're so good, obviously they're getting, 5-star, 4-star recruits left and right, but they're developing people. I don't care who you are, 2-star, 3-star, 5-star, whatever it is. They're developing people at a rate that no one else is. And we're seeing that by guys who are filling the roles of people who get drafted. They just reload. The next guys are ready to go. And so whatever they got in the Kool-Aid down there, man, they are just cooking right now. But man, what a massive matchup it's going to look like in Atlanta for Georgia versus Alabama, man. That's going to be an all-timer.
Yeah, there were a few things about this one that stood out. I mean, first of all, there was that whole discussion we had last week of what Tennessee team are they going to get? Because I think if Tennessee had gone and won at Missouri, then okay, this is a big game because Tennessee, if you I don't know that Tennessee's chances of squeaking into the playoff, we're going to be there with the win over Missouri and a win over Georgia, but there was maybe a 1 or 2 in 1,000 chance, and certainly there were major bowls to play for. And when Tennessee got its doors blown off against Missouri, we had questions. Okay, what Tennessee team are we going to see on Saturday? Well, the thing I thought is starting this game might be important because let's say Georgia goes out and throws a couple of haymakers and up 14-0 after 5 minutes, then that takes the crowd out of it.
Yep.
Maybe Tennessee's demoralized and the game looks differently. Well, no, instead Tennessee runs a 75-yard touchdown on the game's first snap, and that place is electric, as you pointed out. Now, look, I think Carson Beck's had a really fantastic season. I don't think anybody would debate that. But the thing we've said about Georgia is the schedule was a little questionable, and all the games were going to be on the back end. The other thing we said about Georgia, I thought the only time Georgia went on the road with the chance to lose was going to be this game in Knoxville because computers had it just a few points apart.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen some crazy stuff happen in Knoxville under Josh Heupel. That team doesn't lose there. Missouri's biggest two challenges were Ole Miss and Missouri coming in this one. Guess where they both were, Gavin? They were in
Georgia's biggest challenges. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean the only game that the Auburn game was kind of close, and that's a rivalry game. But I just didn't think Auburn ultimately had the horses to beat them, and it didn't.
Yep.
This was one with Tennessee that Tennessee's got weapons. Tennessee is defended okay. Now that fell apart again, but I thought this is a spot for Carson Beck that we're really going to see what he's made of because this might be the first game that they played where if things go wrong, they could lose on the road, and the recipe's right there. They get down 7-0 early, and what does he do? He just balls, and here they are with the win that was never really close.
No, it was never close, and that's it. You said it right there, Chris. The Ole Miss game. Look, do I think Ole Miss is a better team than Tennessee? I do, but I didn't see Georgia losing in Athens. We've seen obviously throughout the years Tennessee win some ginormous games in Neyland Stadium, and they have like you said, they have the horses to beat them. And it looked like early it was going to be another magical day there, but man, did they shut that down early? Man, they did. And Tennessee. When I evaluate Tennessee, they got obviously the offense is not nearly on par with what it was last year, but they have some deeper issues there. There's some big time tackling issues on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, we said this at the beginning of the year, Chris. Everyone thought it was just going to be, Hendon Hooker out, Joe Milton in. There were so many other changes to that offense. OC gone, top 10 tackle and Darnell Wright gone to the Chicago Bears. Litnikoff, Jalen Hyatt gone. Like there were so many other changes to this offense. Honestly, I think it's a little unfair to Joe Milton. And people are look, Joe Milton is not nearly what Hendon Hooker was last year for this offense. But Tennessee has some very, very deeper issues than Joe Milton. And people thinking that Joe out and putting Nico in is going to solve all their issues and get them back to where they were last year. I'm sorry, that's just not true. There's some way, way deeper stuff, that Tennessee has to work on in order to get back to where they want to be, which is obviously where they were last year, Chris.
Yeah. Be interested to see how Tennessee plays out this season, how interested they are in a bowl game, what kind of bowl game they get. Beat Vandy, you're 8-4. That's not a bad season for what was thought to be kind of a rebuild. I mean, look, I think everybody's thought that the future with Tennessee was Nico Iamaleava, and that's ahead of him. We might see him against Vandy this weekend. If he goes and has a big performance, then probably the mood around the team's a little different. Maybe he gets starts in a bowl game. If it goes a different direction, you got kids with minds on the portal and whatever else. And I don't know what it looks like from that point.
Yeah. And that's why, this is what's a little bit new. And from my career, I experienced it in my last year, but you're kind of at the point in the season where you're as a head coach, you're trying to make as many people happy as you can, because you don't want some people to leave. Right. And so, I think Tennessee's at a point where, they obviously host Vanderbilt on Saturday. Joe Milton should start. It's senior night. He waited his turn behind Hendon Hooker. I will be shocked and honestly like a little disappointed if Joe Milton is not the starter on Saturday for Tennessee. I'm not saying Nico doesn't deserve snaps. Sure, get him some snaps, get him some, some experience under his belt in a conference game. What does that look like for a bowl game? But yeah, you're right. Look, is Nico the future in Tennessee? Sure, but for people to say, which is a lot of Vol Nation and Vol Twitter, which we all know is so almighty powerful. For them to think that Nico is going to step in and get back to where they were last year, that's just nonsense.
Sorry for the screen departure. We got a little bit of an AirPods charging issue I'm working to resolve. It's been a day so far.
Hey, you know what? We're making it work, man. It's late in the year. It's kind of like as a player, man. You're late in the year. Everything hurts. You're just trying to grind to that finish line, baby. That's all it is, man. I remember this time last year, we were gearing up to play Tennessee after we just won back-to-back against Florida and Kentucky. And I felt like my body was just taped together. And so, Chris, it's the same thing. I'm just behind the mic now, baby. It's it's the same deal. It's this time of year, man. We're all grinding for it. But yeah, let's maybe wrap up this Georgia Tennessee talk, because I know we got a lot of people in these comments that want to talk about MIZ. So we should probably do that.
Yeah, I think the last thing for Georgia, just again, and we talked about this some on Saturday night when Blaine and I did our live reaction. It's just a continuation of they've got so many weapons. I think you had 12 backs and receivers get a touch on Saturday. Dylan Bell, you talked about how great he was, but it's just a continuation of what Kirby Smart has put together, is that they've just got so many guys who can make it. And look, when Brock Bowers was out, that was the one guy on the team that we thought was kind of indispensable. They didn't miss a beat, and now they're stronger with him back because it's all that depth, which is just – I don't know if there's a team in the country that's got what they've got in that regard.
Yeah, and I think you just nailed it, Chris, is like when Bowers was out, they didn't miss a step. Like, they did not miss a step. It wasn't even like a decrease in whatever. Carson Beck actually, I think, didn't throw an interception. I think he had 8 touchdowns and no picks when Bauer was out, and that's obviously his go-to guy. We saw that on third down. Speaking of third down, Georgia is ridiculous on third down. I don't know if I can – I'm sorry, I didn't have the stat pulled up. I probably should have done that before the show. But I've watched Georgia really from the first snap to the last snap. I've watched them on and off. From the first snap to the last snap, I've watched them 4 times this season. And every single time that third down stat pops up in like the middle of the third quarter, they're like 8 for 11, like 9 for 12, like ridiculous off the charts on third down. And that's what you get when you have weapons, but also your primary guy being a big tight end and maybe even the best receiver in the country, and Brock Bowers, being a dependable guy. So that extends drives. It's to me, a third down conversion is worth as much as a turnover because you don't get it, the other team gets the ball. And when you're 8 of 11 on third down, you're going to win a lot of football games.
All right, Missouri, we're coming for you next. Did you see the last few minutes of that game?
It was unreal. You talk about, and I thought last week was like the legacy win that like everyone's going to remember. Like, and it maybe was with Tennessee, but like, man, how awesome for Missouri. And I cannot imagine where this is going to take them next year, man. They are the momentum that he has there is something that we haven't seen in a long time. I'm not talking at like Alabama, LSU, Georgia, but some of these other schools that are fighting for the top. Man, Missouri has some screaming momentum, and obviously has done well in recruiting prior to all this too. So I'm really excited to see where they can end up, Chris.
Well, and it's the big 3 for them again. Final stats: Cooks 20 of 34 for 331, 1 touchdown, no picks. That no picks was key. Schrader gives him 23 for $148 and the score. Catches a couple passes for no yards after having a big receiving week the week before. And Luther Burden goes 9 for $158. And more importantly, this was not Missouri's best game, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they're down in this game late. Florida kicks a field goal. They need that 4th and 17 play, which like the 2 defining plays of their season were the Harrison Mevis field goal, the 61-yarder to beat Kansas State, and then probably that 4th and 17 conversion, which kept them alive for Mevis to win them the game again at the end.
Mm-hmm. And like the story of the game was the big 3 for sure. And if you want to say a big 4, a jumbo 4, and Mevis, sure, because he's obviously created a lot of he's impacted winning at a high level for Missouri. But also too, there's a play in that game, Chris. Theo Weiss took a ball and ran about as fast as I've seen a human being run in a long time. And that depth that they've been able to build, obviously the big 3, Schrader, Burden, Cook, right? Those guys, the game, they win and lose games based off that. But this is a guy who had 1 catch for 77 yards and a touchdown, and he caught it about 2 yards in front of the line of scrimmage and booked it down the sideline. If you guys haven't seen it, it was honestly one of my favorite plays from the weekend. Just absolutely took off from the Florida defense. And when I think Florida, and I've said this before, I always think speed. You're going to be able to find as much speed as you want in Florida recruiting through Central Florida, South Florida, wherever it is. But, man, he outran those guys by, like, multiple steps. And so if you guys haven't seen that play or weren't watching the game, go check it out because my mouth dropped and he took off down that sideline. But, it speaks to the depth that Drink's been able to build there. How much more can they do? I really think the sky's the limit, for this program, what they've been able to do. I said last week, Drink went on SEC Nation and said, for the first time in my career, we're not recruiting, we're picking. Basically saying, like, we're picking and choosing guys who we want to come in because so many people want to come play for Mizzou. And I believe him. I absolutely believe him. I said Missouri is one of the most underrated places to play in the conference. And that's when Vanderbilt was playing Missouri, and we were both not very good teams. And now I can't imagine what that atmosphere was like on Saturday night. I honestly wish I was there. I need to go back to a game, that's for sure.
Luther Burden now 1,142 receiving yards, and 630 of those come in the league. It's been a year for receivers.
Yeah,
and I don't know how you sort them out at the end, because you got the two dudes at LSU. I know I'm missing somebody just off the top of my head, but I think he's been as valuable to his team as any receiver in the conference. I mean, LSU's got Thomas and good grief, I've gone blank, but their other big gun.
Neighbors.
Yeah, but I mean, they've got another, and Missouri's got some parts. Brett Norfleet, their tight end, had a nice game.
Mm-hmm.
Mookie Cooper's been around there, caught some balls. You mentioned Weiss, who transferred from Oklahoma, but I think, man, there's just so many guys on this team, and I think particularly Schrader and Burden. Schrader's as good a year as Schrader's had, and as attention as he's gotten lately. I think that Burden you could argue he's as valuable to his team as anybody in the league.
Yeah, I think that's a super valid argument. But I also say you could argue any three of those guys are as valuable to Missouri as anybody in the league.
Because
and that's
what makes Cook's in there too.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And that's what makes Missouri so good is you have to defend them three-dimensionally, especially when Cook uses his legs. You have to defend him through the air with Cook and Burden. You have to stop the run with Schrader, otherwise he'll run all over you. I mean, that dude runs hard. And then, like I said, Cook can use his legs too. So as a defensive coordinator, I'm not really sure how you even prepare for that. And then you have the depth with Weiss and all these other guys. And then, like we said, because Chris, if you remember, let's take it all the way back. Let's take it all the way back to the beginning of the year when we talked about, God, if Missouri's offense can just keep up with their defense has played well. And now the story of this season is the three-headed monster of this offense. And sure enough, they're having the season of different ages, right? And so this is what teams are looking for. And Missouri's found that formula this year. And it's fun to watch. I love seeing guys get rewarded for their work. Obviously, Cook's been there for a while. We talked about earlier in the year when he gave the post-game quote about having the chip on his shoulder, about basically, it was his dream to play quarterback at Missouri. And then, you win the game on Saturday night and the guy's standing in front of the student section and pumping his chest and everybody's cheering him on. It's hard not to cheer for guys like that. And so I give my props, give my flowers to Drink, all those guys at Missouri. But, man, we said it. Let's take it all the way back. We said it. If Missouri's offense can keep up with Missouri's defense, they're going to have a good year. Sure enough, they've blown past it and just have, honestly, 3 of the MVPs in the whole Southeastern Conference.
How is this for consistency? This team has scored between 30 and 39 points in 9 of its 11 games. The 2 exceptions, beating MTSU back on September 9th, 23-19, in a game where they were just kind of there. And then the other one would be Georgia. They get 21 points to Georgia, so no shame in that for sure.
Yeah, and that if you told me before the season with Missouri's defense that they were going to score between that many points in 9 of 11 games, I would have told you they're going to win a lot of games. And sure enough, here they are, right? And so really impressed all around. Where can they go from here? Because, they recruited Luther Burden, who was the best receiver, best player in the country, to Missouri when they were not good. Who can they go get with what they're doing now? They can build depth in the secondary. They've sent defensive backs to the NFL for multiple years in a row now. Linebacker Nick Bolton, they have had guys in the past who have had NFL talent, but now you bring in guys in depth because the SEC season, we said all the time, it's a gauntlet. Guys go down left and right like flies. Can you fill them in with talent that's going to produce, for years to come? And I think that Missouri is, and I'm going to be really, really interested to see, where they go in the future years of this conference, especially adding, 2 teams who are closer to them, probably fighting for recruiting rights now in Oklahoma and Texas in years to come.
Yeah. And with the NIL situation there, I think they're in good shape to be. I don't know that they're going to crack the Alabama, Georgia tier, but it feels like they're set up. Well, I mean, look, they're probably not set up as well as Florida's going to be long term, and maybe not even Tennessee. Tennessee's got more history and tradition. You got A&M, whatever that can become. Just an unusual situation. But it feels like outside of that pack of teams, and there's no reason. I mean, I say Tennessee, Texas A&M.
Right.
I mean, but Missouri's won the East twice since they've been in the league. They came in at the same time A&M did. No, A&M's playing in the West. It's a much different argument, but I'd have to go back and look. But I bet Missouri's got a better SEC record than A&M in that time.
Yeah, and maybe even Tennessee. But that's my point is Tennessee,
the better record than Tennessee for sure.
Look, they've had the history of in the state, like all that. But what kids care about, kids aren't thinking about, the trophies and dusting off the Peach Bowl from 1970. They don't care about that stuff. I'm telling you that right now. They care about who's winning right now and who's giving them the most money. And so if they're set up in NIL and they're going to a winning team, and obviously people care about drink and love playing for drink, and you're creating that culture. And what they've been able to do, I know unless your team's playing in Columbia or Missouri, you're probably not stopping by for a tourist trip. But what they've been able to do with that end zone of the stadium is spectacular. The football facility is spectacular. Obviously, the fans are super passionate. And so they've checked all the boxes. And now they found that magic potion that solves everything, and that's winning, baby. It's winning. Winning solves everything. Winning solves transfer issues. Winning solves attendance issues. Winning solves recruiting issues. Winning solves, facility issues. It solves everything, and they found that on top. But they've already also checked all their boxes and covered their tracks. So I'm just really excited to see where Missouri can go, because I really think they can go from and I'm not saying they're a bottom tier program in this league, but let's be real. They have not won a lot of games in recent years. They can go for a team that is scratching and clawing with Georgia every single year, right? That was a battle this past year. They beat the brakes off of Tennessee. We could look at this Missouri-Georgia game for the next 3 years as like kind of a dicey one to come. And man, what does that say about Missouri? What a program they've been able to build.
All right, I feel like we've got 3 more things to get to before we do bowl projections. And maybe if you've got another one, I'm open to that too. But my goodness, Auburn. We kind of warned and said New Mexico State might be a little better than you think, but we felt like Auburn was rounding into form. And look, sometimes when you see an upset, especially that magnitude, it's like the favorite has 400 yards, the underdog has 300 yards, and there's just 4 turnovers and a safety or something weird. It was a statistical domination by New Mexico State in this one.
It was, and that's what the biggest thing is. Like, Peyton Thorne. Like, we already knew that Auburn struggled to throw the ball. Okay, Peyton Thorne was also their leading rusher with 38 yards. That's probably not a recipe for success. And I'm going to be really candid here. I didn't sit on my couch and watch the Auburn-New Mexico State game on Saturday, but when that score came across the ticker, I actually thought I was being punked. When that score came across ticker and said 31-10, I thought it was a joke or a typo. And so sure enough, I had to go watch, the condensed game and watch. And you're right, Chris, like, it was no fluke. They just got dominated in their own stadium. And I'm not even sure where you go from here, because you thought you were building some momentum, with Hugh Freeze, and it's not even like you found a way to get upset and it's like, oh, that one stung. Like, you actually just got beaten down, and then gave him a $2 million check to leave your stadium too.
Yeah,
that's tough to swallow. And so, and I've said this from the beginning. I believe in Hugh Freeze. He's won everywhere he goes. I think he recruited me when he was at Ole Miss. I have nothing but great things to say about him. I think he relates to his players in a really unique way. He will have success. I don't know when, especially before this past weekend. I thought it would come sooner rather than later, but maybe we need to give him a little more time than we thought.
Yeah, I think their biggest issue, and we sort of saw it coming in, and maybe they did bring in Peyton Thorne, who had some good years at Michigan State, but I think it's just the surrounding cast.
Yeah.
It feels like after Jarquez Hunter, who on that team scares you?
Yeah, not a lot of people, especially receiving wise, right? Like,
right.
And Auburn's had some great receivers in the past. They had great receivers with Nick Marshall. Nick Marshall was a really good SEC quarterback for Auburn, but he wasn't, crazy talent, right? But they had the guys around him to really, really, elevate his level of play. And you see that at multiple schools, not even in our conference, but in the country. But man, I think, obviously Peyton Thorne is not a bad player. Obviously, he had some pretty good statistical years at Michigan State. But when you put a quarterback who's maybe not uber talented in an offense that doesn't have a lot of weapons, I think some things get exposed. And man, it's kind of been the story for Auburn this whole year, at least their offense.
Yeah. Sam Pittman retained at Arkansas. Glad to see it. Arkansas had a cakewalk of a game. I mean, look, nothing was guaranteed the way this weekend went, but they took care of business. FIU probably, even though it's won 4 games, probably a bottom 4 team bottom 5 team in college football if you look at the computers.
Yeah.
But look, I think with Arkansas, and the schedule's been brutal, as we've called out. You just needed to beat somebody. They went out and did that. And I'm glad to see Sam Pittman is getting another year. The fan base may not endorse that view, but I'm glad we get Sam Pittman back for another year.
I'm with you, Chris. And look, I cheer for good people. I think Sam Pittman's a good human. I also think he's had some tough luck because they've had the toughest schedule in the country for like multiple years in a row now. And so, you got to give some credit. And not only that, but the games they've lost have been by single digits. And so, I know there was some reports this past weekend about, his job security, and he's saying he didn't have this conversation and whatnot. But, especially after the AD came out and released a statement saying he's going to stick around, I think that's the right move because it creates security for the guys that are there for next year. If you say, he's not coming back or you fire him, you're basically saying next season's a toss up as well. You're giving yourself a chance next year with Pittman coming back. And like I said, they lost the majority of their games by a few points. You can go back and probably watch the film that I'm sure that everyone in the Arkansas facility is super diligent about and say, there's like 5 plays from our season where our record could be flipped. And that's just true. And that's the margins in college football are so small. And, so I'm glad he's getting another year. Who knows? Maybe he goes out and the record does get flipped because those plays, they make those plays or don't make the ones that they messed up. But, it's easy to cheer for good people. Like I said, I think Sam Pittman's one of them. I think he matches the university. And so, I'm with you, Chris. I'm glad to see him back for another year. And most importantly, I think he deserved it. I really do.
Yeah. Were you shocked that the Kentucky-South Carolina game went the way that it did? I don't mean South Carolina winning. I expected that. But both teams under 300 yards of offense. What was it, a 17-14 final?
Yep.
Style-wise, it was nothing like what I thought we were going to see.
No, and you know what, man? Because my bold prediction going into this is, I talked about this. I had South Carolina winning this game. But my question was, where are the players' heads at in terms of each team? Because at this point in the year, and I said this last week, I tried to take us inside the mind and the psychology of a player at this time of the year in the conference, especially with Kentucky, when your season started a lot better than how it's been going so far. Your eventual goals and what you thought you were going to be at, those are out of reach. And so, how do you perform, especially on the road in a raucous environment in Willie B at night? I kind of not predicted, but would not be surprised if I saw Kentucky sleepwalking. That's kind of what it looked like, to be honest with you guys. But it honestly looked like it from the coaching perspective too, right? Because we didn't see Ray Davis get the ball a ton. He got 11 or 12 carries, and that guy was the story of their season for 6-7 games. And so, a little bit of a boring game, 17-14. Not one you want to tune into well. It ended up being a good one there at the end. I tuned in, and obviously, Williams-Brice at night. If you guys have never been before, I really highly suggest you go. It's a sight to see. But the thing was, the story in this game, Chris, is Kentucky had nothing to play for, and their season was over. And their team was made up of transfer guys who had goals that were far better than what's left. And South Carolina is scrapping and clawing to make a bowl game and have a similar run to what they had last year. And so, where is the passion? Where is the energy in this game? Where is the juice coming from which team? It was pretty clear that was coming from the Gamecock sideline, not Kentucky.
Yeah, Carolina now got a shot. Home game with Clemson. The fan base will be jacked. I mean, you want to beat Clemson even if you're 0-11.
Yep, absolutely.
And now a shot at a bowl game, which Shane Beamer has been 2 for 2 so far, and he's always done it with this formula where they play their best ball this time of the year. But Kentucky, to me, is going to be interesting because it feels like, and I don't think it's necessarily fair, it feels like the Mark Stoops thing maybe is running its course in Kentucky, where he has lifted the expectations, I think, beyond a point where they're probably realistic. But, fans generally aren't realistic. And I do wonder, would the best thing for everybody be just him finding an Iowa or somewhere like that where he goes and moves on? And I'm on the record saying I think Mark Stoops moving on for Kentucky. I don't care how the fans feel about it. And it's their right, but I don't think that'd be a good thing for them. Now, look, facilities, atmosphere around football much better than they were when he took the job, which, again, that's a credit to him. Yep. But I'm very interested to see how that plays out because it just seems like And you've seen it with the NIL comments that made fans mad earlier in the year. That feels like there's some friction there. I don't know if that's reflected in how the team played. You had Ray Davis on Twitter saying, hey, I thought I was going to be the bell cow. His carries have gone down. His numbers have gone down. Something just doesn't feel right about that whole situation.
Yeah, like you said, it feels like there's a lot of friction, right? And there's just – and that's what happens. It's what happens when you have a lot of guys come in and you start out hot and then you start falling off. People start pointing the finger and blaming. It's what happens. It happens in locker rooms. It happens in the film room and team meetings. Everyone's looking for a person to blame except themselves. That's just human nature. And so, but you're lying to yourself as a Kentucky fan. Let's just say that Mark Stoops and Kentucky part ways after this season. You're lying to yourself if Mark Stoops has not just completely elevated the standard of what is Kentucky football, right? Not in terms of how many wins per year, but the facility, what the stadium become, the atmosphere, whoever they bring in next, like now that's the floor. He's brought them from the depths of what they were. Now where they're at now is the floor if they're going to go out and find some other guy. And so I want to make sure Kentucky fans know that, who are screaming and calling for, we want change and something new. Sure, but just know what's possible. You revert back to what you were. That's very possible because we know that maybe this is Mark Stoops' ceiling. Maybe it is. But if you're going to risk taking another guy, taking to the next level, you're also risking another guy taking you back to where you were. And I think that's the last thing you want. So grass ain't always greener. Who knows? Maybe it's sunshine and rainbows, but it may be a desert as well. So,
the one thing that he's done that's helped them get to where they are was schedule cupcakes in the non-conference. Always playing a couple of bottom-feeding MAC teams. Of course, when you got Louisville as an out-of-conference game, I don't really stand in too much judgment, especially at Kentucky, a place where just people haven't won. And you need those built-in wins to get to a bowl game most places. Alabama, Georgia don't need them. But most places you do. But I'm starting to wonder, I've been wondering this for some time now, is that caught up with him? Because it's not just those games, it's the placement of them. Because it feels like Kentucky's always got 3 games. They always start 3-0, first 3 weeks of the season, throwing Eastern Kentucky. And again, those are those good things to help you get to a bowl if you're Kentucky? Yes, especially if you wind up with the West schedule that's got Alabama or somebody like that. But sometimes you don't know what you've got until you play somebody. And I'm wondering is that a pivot maybe that they needed to make that's holding them back? I don't know the answer, but I've just started to wonder because everybody gets excited about Kentucky out of the gate. But even when they were playing Akron or those teams, whoever they played, it was kind of underwhelming. And I wonder now, is that maybe done a little more harm than good the last couple of years? Because you really don't know who you have till you're playing the other teams in your league.
Chris, that's a great point because, and that's not even something I realized until I really just thought about it here, is you're totally right. It seems like the script for Kentucky, the season script has been copy and paste for multiple years in a row now, right? And you're right. You never see them. They play all their cupcakes early. And so they're 3-0, 4-0, and they always come up with a big game against Tennessee or Georgia or whoever it is, right? Like midweek, like week 5, 6, week 7. And then they kind of just off the tracks, right? And so it's a great point, Chris. Is that coming back to bite him? Because to me, it's almost worse to start great and get your fans' hopes up, and then you lose a bunch of games in a row and people are fighting, pointing the finger, right? Instead of just kind of having maybe a little bit of an up and down season, but that's the thrill and roller coaster of what college football is. And so you're right, Chris. Maybe that's coming back to bite them. I don't think that – look, I think still at a place like Kentucky, you need those cupcake games to get the record you want. But clumping them all together at the beginning of the season, it's kind of leading to some false expectations, I think, especially because I feel like every year, every freaking year, you're right, Chris, it's week 6, it's week 7, and it's like 5-1 Kentucky, 6-0 Kentucky playing against undefeated Georgia, and they get smoked. And so, maybe they need to reevaluate their strategy going forward. But Kentucky fans for years now have gotten their hopes up preseason, started off great, and then just crashed and burned.
You ready to move on to some bowl projections?
Let's do it. All
right, we're looking at CBS's, and this is interesting, and this is kind of the way I've thought it was going for a while. We'll start with the playoff. Their projections, number 1, Georgia against Oregon, Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, and number 2, Michigan, Florida State in the Rose Bowl. Now, here's some dynamics here. Obviously, this is taking Michigan to beat Ohio State, which I think it will do. This would be taking Georgia to beat Georgia Tech, I would guess. Yeah, if you're going to be the number one seed, that's going to be an unbeaten. And then taking Georgia to beat Alabama, not a given. The interesting part, I felt this was the way it was going to happen. Oregon's a top 4 team according to computers. They're saying Oregon is going to beat Washington, which we already know they had a game in Washington. Washington won that one in the regular season. But Oregon, the stronger team by the computers, I think Oregon would be favored by about 9 by computers on a neutral field. I don't think the actual line would be that high because of the dynamic with those two teams already having played. Let me double check that. Okay, it's 7. It's a little closer than I thought. But still, Oregon, a solid favorite in that game on a neutral field.
You're talking about,
and then Michigan at 3. What's that?
Yeah, you're talking. I just want to make sure I know and the viewers know you're talking about that 7-point spread is against Washington in the Pac-12 game, not the bowl game against Georgia.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
No, say that
and now in I think if Georgia, and I would think that'd be about a Georgia 6-point game. The computers would have it closer, but I think that's about what we would be looking at is my guess. But yeah, and the other thing, of course, Florida State at 3. That's assuming they get by. Do we get word on the severity of the Jordan Travis issue? I haven't checked up on that since last night. I just presume by the look of that he's done for a while.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be playing football for a while, Chris. And obviously my thoughts and prayers go out to him. Just a really unfortunate situation on senior night in that stadium, just especially what they came from because he was there when Norvell started, and that's just really tough to see. So it's going to be, Florida State has to go win still a big game, big rivalry game in the Swamp with a backup quarterback. And so I feel like
they'll be playing Florida's backup too.
Yeah. That's true. And so, I feel like we're going to find out, maybe not all the way, but we're going to find out if it's even possible if Florida State has a shot. Look, if they get undefeated, they're in no matter what. I don't care if they're playing quarterback for them. But are they going to have a shot to compete in the playoff once they're there? I feel like we're going to learn a lot about that. But yeah, I don't think Jordan Travis is going to be playing anytime soon. The biggest thing with me with the playoff picture right now, Chris, is you're looking at I'm just talking based off these projections right here. Georgia, Oregon, Michigan, Florida State. You can still assume that Texas wins out and beats Oklahoma in the Big 12, avenges their loss and doesn't get in. Oregon's the same script, one-loss team avenging their loss versus Washington. I guess they would get in because that avenged loss would be against an undefeated team. Is that how you see it too, Chris? Or
that and again, the computers just perceive Oregon to be a strong team. They've got him. I'm looking at him. Here's points above average of what I've got. Michigan 28.7, Ohio State 27.2, Georgia 27.1, Oregon 25.0, Alabama 24.3. And then Texas down a little below that at 21.1, with Florida State at 21.3. And just for kicks, Penn State, and I don't agree with this because Penn State's got no offense at 23.3 above average. So that is how the computers see that the top 8. Obviously, Penn State not going to be in the playoff hunt, but with no Jordan Travis, Florida State definitely would have to take a hit. And here's the thing with FSU too. You're going to have to be – I think Louisville clinched this weekend. Mm-hmm. So, you're going to have to deal with them in the title game without Jordan Travis, presumably.
Right. You got to deal with Florida first on the road without Travis, and then you got to deal with Louisville in Charlotte, which, against Louisville, who's a sneaky team. I mean, holy smokes, Louisville's a top 10 team, and no one's talked about it, right? And so, look, their one loss is a bad loss. Maybe that's why we're not talking about it, but Jeff Brom's done an unbelievable job in his first year back at Louisville. And so got to give my props there. And sure enough, if they're going to see, especially, a wounded team with a backup quarterback and an opportunity to win your conference championship, I think they're going to come out swinging in that game.
Yeah, it's funny. I felt like Florida State had the best chance of any of these teams to make the playoff the last couple of weeks just because of the path. Mm-hmm. But the Travis injury now, I think I'm more nervous about FSU than any of those other 3 teams, which again, if you're just joining us, would be Georgia, Oregon, and Michigan, none of which have cakewalks. But, just without Travis, I don't know what to make of those guys.
Yeah. I mean, we'll find out. The guy going in the Swamp, hostile environment. Look, that's maybe not full strength, but you talk about a desperate team and a desperate coach. Billy Napier needs that one for sure.
Okay, other bowl projections. We had some questions in the chat about Missouri. It's felt like for a while that Now, if Alabama beats Georgia in the title game, presuming they beat Auburn too, then we're going to have a conversation about Alabama in the playoff and probably Georgia not in the playoff. But
Right.
if it goes according to what the odds are going to be, then I think you're going to see Alabama and Missouri both in New Year's Six games. Now, if Missouri loses to Arkansas, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But this one's got Missouri against Penn State in the Peach Bowl, and these are CBS's projections. And then Alabama and Washington in the Cotton Bowl. Look, it's going to be take your pick. The SEC is going to probably get two or three, or two teams in one of these three bowls: orange, peach, cotton. Just depends on where they slot them. Missouri in the Cotton was one I've kind of been watching too, because that's probably geographically a little closer to Columbia. I think them would be Atlanta. I don't know the driving distance there, but it probably more proximate. You could send Alabama to the Peach Bowl. You could get a huge crowd there. You could also send it to Miami and get a pretty huge crowd. So I don't know how that all plays in, but I think it's going to be Missouri and Alabama probably in two of those three bowls.
Yeah, and if it were up to me, I would love to see Missouri playing a team like Texas, or really, honestly, this even sounds more intriguing, is Ohio State. That would be a true test, right? Because Ohio State's been those top four chunk of teams in terms of elite. And I'd love to see a surging team in Missouri play a team that's basically been, pitching a tent at the top of the rankings for the past couple of years in Ohio State. That would be an awesome matchup to see. Penn State, I don't know, they're probably not going to be able to score. Penn State, Louisville, I guess, because that may not be maybe like the least intriguing game. Would love to see maybe Alabama play Washington, which is what's projected here in Arlington. I think that'll be fun seeing Penix versus that Alabama defense with Dallas Turner. Where does Tulane go? And how about Tulane, man? On track to make back-to-back New Year's Six bowls.
Yeah.
I mean, Willie Fritz, how is that guy? I know he's in the later stages of his career. How is that guy now for consideration at A&M or these other openings, right? I mean, that guy's been terrific in Tulane and beat USC in the Cotton Bowl last year. So, yeah, these are all good projections, but I think hopefully if I were doing the bowl matchups, I think there's some more intriguing matchups to go for than what they got here at CBS.
Okay, yeah, CBS has got, I guess Jerry Palm's run one set of projections, and CBS Maine has run another, because Jerry Palm and his has Washington and Alabama in the Cotton, Missouri, Penn State in the Peach. So take your pick there. And they don't project out. The rest of their bowl projections are Jerry Palm, and I think some of these are questionable. Mm-hmm. Now, they've got Iowa and Ole Miss in the Citrus, LSU and NC State in the ReliaQuest Bowl. I think those two teams are on track for that level of bowl.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee and the Gator against North Carolina seems like a fair match there. You're going to have, a 3-loss UNC team?
Yeah.
Or 2-loss, I can't remember, and probably a 4-loss Tennessee team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You got Wisconsin and Texas A&M in the Music City Bowl in our backyard. I was thinking more like, I thought Auburn was tracking pretty well for Nashville.
Yeah,
but
Wisconsin has not had a good year though, man. They've not had a great year. And I know it's Fickle's first, but they haven't had a good year. And obviously A&M will be without a full-time head coach, so it'll be interesting to see how they play in that game.
Yeah, okay. He's got, I don't know if this is based on 5 and 7 eligibility. He's got West Virginia and Mississippi State and Liberty. I think that's a long shot. I don't see Mississippi State beating Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl. And he's got, what else? He's got Auburn now going to face Kansas State in the Texas Bowl. That feels like a little bit of a mismatch. I would think Auburn would have lost a little luster. Duke and Kentucky in the Mayo Bowl.
I think Duke, you're talking on track for a bowl. I think Duke's on track for the Duke's Mayo Bowl, no doubt.
That seems appropriate.
No doubt.
And what else has he got? I wonder if he's got – I don't see South Carolina or Florida in here.
I don't see South Carolina or Florida either.
I don't know. I question some of these. I think Florida's got a better chance of upsetting Florida State than State does against Ole Miss, to be honest.
That was going to be a part of my bold predictions last week, but I decided to hold it close to my chest. But I'm with you. And that was before the Travis injury. But I think Florida beats Florida State this weekend. Yeah,
I think – I don't know. There's probably some projections out there that I like better, but that's what CBS has got, and we're reading it just for fun because, that's That's what we do this time of year, project. And it's still just – we could draw up a scenario, and here's mine. I'm going to say I think Georgia's going to beat Alabama. We in agreement there?
I'm with you.
Both teams went out this weekend.
Yep.
So we got Georgia's the 1 seed in the playoff. I like Michigan to knock off Ohio State.
Yep.
Just with that defense,
what's that going to say about Ryan Day losing to an interim coach?
Yeah,
people are going to lose their mind about that.
I think most of the value of a head coach is done before kickoff. Would you agree?
Yeah, I'm with you, but that'll be the third straight loss, and people already last year were calling for his head, and you lose without Harbaugh. I'm just saying that, and it's not fair. It's not fair, but I guess that's the standard up there.
No, we put Oregon in, but they've got to beat Oregon State. That'll be in Oregon. That'll be no pushover, and then beating Washington again, a team that beat them. I mean, here's the thing that's interesting.
Oregon looks really
all
good.
These playoff teams, none of them have a pushover to get there. Like even with Jordan Travis, we've seen Florida be pretty good at times. I mean,
especially
Florida with Graham Mertz, which they won't have. That could have been interesting. I think now, I'm still going to take Florida State, but I've just got some questions. Like everybody has got a tough path to get here. Texas still in the hunt, as you pointed out.
Yep.
Washington, if Washington wins out, Washington's certainly going to be there. I don't know that a one-loss Louisville's got much of a path. It would take some crazy stuff elsewhere.
Yeah.
But, one-loss Alabama. Beat if Alabama wins out, beats Auburn and Georgia, you're not going to leave Alabama out.
Are you?
Well, okay, here's your scenario.
That's
Big Ten winner's going to get in unbeaten. Yep. Whoever Michigan or Ohio State wins is going to get Iowa. They're going to win that game. So Big Ten's going to get one at least.
Now it looks
I feel like the Pac-12 is going to get one unless here's the scenario. Let's say Oregon State loses to Washington. Let's say Oregon loses to Oregon State and then beats Washington. That might be your way that the Pac-12 doesn't get anybody. I still think the SEC, no matter what. Well, I shouldn't say no matter what. Here's your scenario: Alabama beats Georgia. Well, there's a few scenarios in there. I think the SEC is going to get one. Would love to see them get two, but that's going to take some crazy stuff elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's possible. It's not likely, but it's possible they get zero because if Texas avenges their loss against Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship, you're just going to leapfrog Alabama over Texas. Look, I know they beat Georgia, who's won however many games in a row, but there was a head-to-head matchup in Bryant-Denny that they won by double digits. You're going to leapfrog Alabama over Texas? I don't know, man. I don't know.
I think the closest thing to a sure thing at this point is the Big Ten gets a team in.
Yeah, they will, because neither Michigan or Ohio State, whoever wins the game this Saturday, is going to lose to Iowa in the Big Ten championship. So that gets in. Now Florida State's, I think, a little more in question because we used to pencil them in at 13-0, right? 13-0 in, but now they're a little more in question. And then what does it look like, with Oregon, Texas? We talked about all the time, Oregon, Texas, Alabama. That's the three teams, and it's razor thin. But I personally believe, obviously Alabama has to win out, but I personally believe that Alabama needs Oregon and or Texas to lose a game for them to get in. No matter what.
I do too. I think Oregon, a one-loss Oregon team is – I have a very hard time seeing that Oregon team get left out under that scenario.
Yeah. Especially if they're avenging their loss against undefeated Washington and they're getting in. They're getting in.
Yeah, I mean, and there's some good wins there. There's Southern Cal at Utah at Texas Tech. They've already banked those, and then throw in
Oregon State and Washington.
Yeah, if they get them. So I don't think Oregon's getting left out. In fact, Washington this weekend's got the app. I think the Pac-12 feels to me like that's kind of a safe bet by comparison.
Yeah,
because if Washington wins out, Washington's in.
Yeah, no doubt. And so that's what I'm saying about this SEC thing, man. It could get really dicey. And the great news is, we've been at this point in multiple seasons in years past where we basically already know who's in the playoff. Every single game can throw off all this stuff. And every single team that's in this top six has a game that they got to go out and earn. There's no cupcake. It's a tough matchup for every team. And so it's going to be great football. Excuse me. It's going to be great football in the playoff, but leading up to it too is going to be awesome.
Yeah. Gavin, any parting thoughts today? Anything on college football we didn't get to that's worth the discussion?
Man, put me on the spot, Chris. I just think it's going to be really interesting. The Texas-Alabama dynamic. Where does Florida State go without Travis? This is all stuff we've touched on. Who gets coach of the year, right? Is it Drinkwitz? Is it Braum for what he's done at Louisville? It's his first year.
I'm going to give you a third one. Kirby
Okay.
Smart.
Yeah, Kirby Smart as well, right? And so, in my opinion, it's like, oh, of course it's Drink at Missouri, but like there's some people have been having some really good seasons. And so is it Dan Lanning at Oregon?
Yeah. Is it Kalen DeBoer?
Kalen DeBoer, yeah. And so
Mike Norvell.
Yeah, exactly.
Jim
and
Harbaugh.
So a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff, teams who could get it. We'll see about what happens. But man, it's been a pleasure, Chris. Obviously, but man, I've had a blast this year hopping on here, and obviously heading towards the end of the season here. But obviously appreciate everyone that's tuned in as well. Seriously, thank you.
Yeah, and that's a good place to lead in where I want to go. We've been doing the daily show since what, the first week of September?
Mm-hmm. Pre-season, before the season started.
Yeah, I guess it was. Time flies when we're having fun, and had such a good time doing this with you and our regular guests. We've had Trey Wallace. Just kind of telling you guys where we're going to go with this, because I'm on vacation this week and Gavin is also headed out. We wanted to spend some time with family. I'm out in Colorado. If you're familiar with our shows, you're like, why is Chris's background different? That's because I'm a time zone away and going to be all week. And I want to get some time to decompress and spend time with people out here. You've got your own plans. So no more daily show. We were going to do one more episode tomorrow, but when you were on the road, we decided not to. So this is going to be the end of the daily show for the time being. I don't know what we'll do next football season, if we'll bring it back. No, look, that does not mean we are going away. By all means, that's not. In fact, we might end up doing as much stuff or more than we've done. If you've been with us a while, you know that the predictions, the previews, we've done reaction shows, but they haven't always been live on the weekdays. They've usually been Saturday nights, and occasionally we'll do them for SEC hoops. So all that to say, if you like the live show, we're not going away. No, Gavin may be going away a little bit because it's the end of football season, although I have a feeling we're going to have you on for a few things during bowl season and championship season. It just won't be at the same time of 11 Central to 11, whatever we usually go. But, hit the subscribe button and enable your notifications so you get our videos. There's going to be plenty of content coming up because we're already headfirst into basketball. We're going to do a bunch of that this week, but just not doing a live show every day gives us a little bit of flexibility. Look, we've only been around a couple years as a YouTube channel. There's only two of us doing this full time. Gavin works out training for a pro football career and gives us what he's got, but that's just going to give us a little bit of time to clear our heads. Frankly, spend a little time with our families, which we've been lacking in, and get a lot of content out to you. But it's just going to be a little different in that, we'll probably have stuff up most days. It's just not going to be live. And we will do some live stuff after big weekends of football, bowl games, basketball. We'll do live stuff. Sometimes it's spur of the moment. So we'll be here to still interact and talk to you guys. It's going to look a little different. And those of you used to tuning into the daily show every day starting 11 Central, that's going to go away today, starting with this one. Again, might bring it back next year depending on what our analytics are telling us and everything. But I just wanted the people to know. And man, we've appreciated having you guys around.
Thank you.
We've appreciated you guys here. We will do something live Saturday nights. Usually Blaine Gilbert and I, after the games are over, when they're in. Hopefully you can join us because those are fun too.
Yeah, maybe so. Sometimes on Saturday night, I'm in Nashville. I'm on Broadway or somewhere else. But maybe I can hop on. But man, can't thank you guys enough. Chris, thank you for letting me hop on. Obviously, only being a year removed from playing in this conference, I said I could bring a unique niche of my thoughts about players. And Chris, I appreciate you let me hop on. And man, it's been a whirlwind. I mean, so many times I know Chris, you, but me too, like scrambling to hop on and make this 11 o'clock show work because we love it and we appreciate it. But obviously we know that you guys eat this up just as much as we do. And so Chris, thank you for entrusting me and coming on here on your show, but also everyone that tunes in, especially all the regulars. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah, Gavin, I covered Gavin in his career at Vanderbilt, even back to high school. I've known you that long. I remember coming watching your high school basketball
Yeah,
games.
that's right.
Although I think you were done by that point. But yeah, so my relationship with this guy goes back a long way, and I approached you back in the spring. Said I think you got some talent. If you ever want to join us, let's kick the tires on that. And I'm so glad we did. You've done great work, and I know our viewers have maybe you can fire off a bold prediction every now and then for TikTok or
All
something.
right, we can do that. I'll still be around. I'll show my face on this channel, but obviously
Yeah.
this is Chris's gig, and I'll be on here as much as he'll let me. So
Yeah. And you were doing this. You're in an office at the place you work out in the
yeah,
mornings,
I'm in
aren't
the
you?
office of
Yeah.
the gym I work out at, and so when you guys see, this is what it is. I hop in here and then I go and absolutely lift the whole gym. So you know what?
Yeah.
This is we make it work. We make it work no matter how it goes.
Yeah, our man's trying to keep the playing dream alive and hops on after workouts to join us, and we've appreciated that. So
That's it.
all right,
Yes,
to everybody out there, be sure and watch. We got plenty of basketball content coming up. We got previews coming up. Again, we'll do a live reaction show probably Saturday night, and have all kinds of football content as we've got so much season in front of us still. And best way to get all our stuff, subscribe to our channel and enable your notifications so you know when we do. God bless you all. Thank you for watching. This has been Southeastern 14 presented by Bet Online.